Hi, welcome to the Fit and Healthy Today show. And today our topic matter is kidney stones. And for some reason, this seemed to be more prevalent in the last couple of weeks, so that's why I picked this topic. Kidney stones and kidney inflammatory issues, which if I have an opportunity to do a little bit further research, we'll probably do on our next topic. I'm seeing a lot of kidney failures. Kidney stones, their accumulation of mineral salts, usually about 80% of them are calcium oxalate stones. And what they are is they're little calcium crystals that collect in the kidneys, and with time the body tries to expel them, and they come through the urinary tract, and they're crystals. So they dice and they slice and they cut. So as a result, extremely painful. Well, depending on how large the stone can be. I mean, the stone can be as big as the tip of your finger here, which is a pretty large and can actually block the urinary tract flow, which then under those circumstances it becomes very, very dangerous. Most of them are very small. There can be multiple amounts. You can have one or two. It's about 50% more common for men to have them than women. And about anywhere from 8 to 10% of the population will suffer from kidney stones sometime in their lifetime. I have a local physician that calls this, for men, a man's way of having a baby. Extremely painful as it slices and dices and cuts when it comes down. So symptoms obviously are going to be pain, a frequent urge to urinate. Remember, urge to urinate can also mean a bladder or kidney type of infection. Blood and sediment in the urine. You can find sand. Sometimes when the kidneys expel these stones, it can be sand-like in property. It's a very good idea if you suspect you have kidney stones to pee in a strainer. I know that sounds extremely odd, but that's the way that we can find out what type of kidney stones you have and the way to prevent them. Like I mentioned before, 80% of them tend to be these calcium oxalate types of mineral deposits. But it can also be phosphates, which we get a lot from sodas, uric acid levels, cysteine levels, which can be very genetic in how you process certain amino acids. Nausea and vomiting, I mean rolling on the ground pain, and I can remember somebody that I know begging for morphine who never would ever use a painkiller in the past when he had kidney stones. Chills and fever, particularly if there's any infection of one of those stones getting lodged in the urethra tract or anywhere in the urinary tract. The causes, and these are ever increasing, kidney stones or sufferers of kidney stones. With our influx of junk food that we do so much of, and a lot of heavy red meats and poor quality red meats, lots of fat and junk, it makes the body extremely acidic by nature. And the body will pull calcium out of the bones to neutralize the pH of all these acids, and that excess calcium can settle in the kidneys. Dehydration, when people don't drink enough water. A lot of us, I catch my own self. Sometimes I'm not the best water drinker when I get busy. And then of course that pH, when the pH of the urine is at a certain point, those stones can form much more readily. Allergies or food sensitivities, which mean you're inflamed. When you're more inflamed, you're going to have a more acidic pH in the body, so the body will have to pull more of that calcium in order to neutralize the pH. Infections, obesity, inactivity, because obviously if the kidneys and the body's not moving or jumping or nothing's rolling along, those stones will tend to form and collect. This you'll sometimes see kidney stones are in the family, and actually my son has them as well as his father had them, and so inherited inability to absorb calcium properly because they're excreting too much of it as oxalic acid. So magnesium, and we'll talk about that further, magnesium-rich foods will tend to prevent some of that formation of that, but it can be very, very hereditary. And the inability to utilize magnesium or absorb magnesium as well as vitamin B6 can be problematic as well from a hereditary standpoint. Metabolic disorders, cancer treatments, certain types of diuretic drugs, hyperthyroidism or parathyroidism. That means where you're going to have a high blood calcium level. And so if you have a high blood calcium level, you're going to tend to form more of those stones. So when you're looking at your prescription drugs and your diuretic or certain high blood pressure medications, pay attention, because obviously if you're having that potential for having kidney stones, you're going to need to supplement with those type of electrolyte minerals that can replenish or balance out the excessive amount or loss of those minerals and the excessive amount of calcium as a result. The testing techniques, besides, well, obviously you're collecting it in the strainer, your doctor can test what kind of stones you're having. And if it's, if it's phosphate-based, if it's other materials, most of them, like I said, 80% are calcium oxalate stones. It'll give him an idea of what to do to counteract that, what certain types of foods to avoid, or that maybe we may have some contributing factors on the part of your medications as well, too. X-rays and ultrasounds, CT scans can tell us if we have one of those lodged. Obviously, CT scans are going to be pretty expensive. And there's a wonderful $10,000 treatment that can zap them and destroy them, and that's if you've got the medical insurance and you've got coverage for it. Most insurance policies don't cover for that particular zapping of your kidney stones. They just assume you're going to pass them with massive amounts of painkillers. I'll list some diet and supplements that can help you with both prevention and in dissolving those stones, which I have personally used on my son, my 24-year-old son. And then vitamin and mineral analysis as well, too. Are you magnesium deficient? Are you low in B6? These types of things obviously can cause an imbalance, which can cause you to collect more of these types of stones. Heavy metal exposure, particularly cadmium. Those people who work in industries, there's a high cadmium level, or obviously if you have a lot of Chinese sheetrock in your home, what can I say, or you chew on a lot of Chinese toys, or you've collected cadmium or those heavy metals in your body. That can also prevent the utilization of magnesium and give you a real mineral imbalance with your calcium, which can also contribute to these stones or the other material types of stones that can form. These heavy metals can be binding agents, and they'll bind to certain types of minerals that you would normally utilize, and it'll settle in the kidneys. So your doctor can perform these types of testings to make a determination about what course of action to do, more in prevention than anything else. Okay. Now, this is a diet that you can use also for prevention, but oh boy, if you suspect you have kidney stones, I would immediately switch over, or if your family has a propensity towards that. But we need lots of water. Normally, as a result, we're drinking about a glass of water. We're supposed to be drinking a glass of water about every 2 to 2.5 hours. This, obviously, we're going to be adding in about 50% more water during the day. You're going to eat a diet high in alkali-producing fresh veggies, whole grains, and very high-quality plant protein and lean white meat. There is a propensity, and the studies have supported, that higher fat meats, particularly red meat, contribute, especially when you do them all the time, contribute to kidney stone formation. They increase inflammation, not just for kidney stones, but for arthritis and a lot of other things. But they increase inflammation, and anytime you increase inflammation, you're going to have a greater propensity for kidney stones. So, lots of alkali-producing raw veggies. You can even juice them if you'd like to. Lemon juice with hot water is a good thing to maybe do first thing in the morning. You think, oh, lemon juice is an acid, but when lemon juice gets in the body, it's an alkaline agent, and it helps the body. When you're alkaline, obviously you're not going to be pulling calcium out of your bones to neutralize your pH, so lemon water is helpful. Juicing, as I mentioned before, and that would be celery. I know they say not to do spinach, but obviously when you're juicing, you're not going to have as great a propensity for oxalates as well. There's some mixed reviews on studies about food contributing to kidney stones. In the old days, they used to say, oh, if you've got kidney stones, don't drink milk. But there's some brand new studies, I believe they were out of Harvard, that say, we're not so sure about that. So what I tell people is if you do drink milk, make sure you take a magnesium supplement with it. I graduated from Cal Poly and used to have a dairy, and milk is an excellent source of protein and calcium lactate forms, but it's a very poor source of magnesium. It's really not very balanced for humans. So if you're going to drink a lot of milk, make sure you take some magnesium citrate to go along with it to balance it, and then I don't think you have too much to worry about. So obviously if you have a propensity towards stones or you've got stones, you're going to get rid of all sugar, red meat, processed foods, salt, caffeine, alcohol, soda. Last week Ralph mentioned, or 2 weeks ago, Ralph mentioned something about sodium nitrate meats and how much issue contributing to heart attacks, and well, we know other things as well too. Diabetes, inability to oxygenate for COPD, lots of things sodium nitrates contribute to. So you're going to want to obviously get rid of all those types of processed meats, processed foods, anything that can make you be acidic. You know, you can go online and you can look up alkali producing foods and acid producing foods, and you just avoid those acid producing foods, particularly when you have kidney stones. Okay, supplement-wise, I kind of put these in the order of what I thought was the most important, because obviously most of us have a budget, and so that being the case, keeping within the budget, there's some people, I mean, for me, I do 3/4 of these already for other things, because obviously in natural medicine, things kind of work synergistically very well together. Work for one thing, work for a lot of different things. So, magnesium citrate prevents the formation of those calcium crystal stones. 250 milligrams, probably twice a day. If you can only get 200 milligrams, I do that 2 to 3 times a day. So we're probably wanting between 400 to 600 milligrams of magnesium citrate. If you take too much magnesium citrate, and how you know this is your bowels will get very loose. But there are some people who have such a poor magnesium absorption level that they have to do substantially more. So you're going to have to see what works for you, but once you reach that point where your bowels are pretty loose, then you're going to probably want to back off and not take quite as much. So once again, it's also a natural laxative too, but it binds to the calcium, and actually magnesium helps calcium absorb into the bones as well too. So that unnecessary calcium that's settling in your kidneys, hey, let's put it to good use and let's get it on your bones, in combination with a little bit of extra vitamin D. There's so much studies out on vitamin D, but vitamin D, believe it or not, since it aids calcium absorption into the bones, once again, can help with prevention of kidney stone formation. But magnesium citrate can also help eat up these little stones. So remember, it's a binding agent, so if we can get magnesium in there, we can bind to it, those little small pebbles, and we can get them to kind of go away and disintegrate. B6, I would say, based upon the studies that I was reading, that probably close to 50% of people are B6 deficient in the United States. And when you're B6 deficient, I could go into the complicated explanation as to why it contributes to stone formation, but when you don't have adequate amounts of B6, you'll form kidney stones. So 50 milligrams, so if you're taking like a B50 complex or a good multiple that has high amounts of B vitamins, you're going to be okay for the prevention of kidney stones. Vitamin K. Once again, now if you're on blood thinners, a lot of doctors are going, yeah, with vitamin K, but there's some new studies out on vitamin K that basically say, hey, we can normalize, we can prevent blood clots with the blood thinners, but we can help normalize the body's ability to clot and unclot with vitamin K at the same time as we take Coumadin. But if you're on Coumadin or blood thinners, you want to talk to your doctor before taking vitamin K. But vitamin K, once again, inhibits those calcium stones because it aids the absorption of calcium into the bones, nerves, and muscle fibers. So, once again, these are things that work for other things, primarily on bones as well, too. Potassium electrolytes, particularly if you're perspiring a lot, you're a heavy sweater, or you're on a diuretic, you need additional amounts of potassium and electrolytes. Now, it's a fine line. Some doctors, especially if you're on a diuretic, will put you on a potassium, and I don't like necessarily the kind they're using in the medicine terms, but potassium chlorides to help balance that, which actually potassium chloride can contribute to kidney stones. So I kind of suggest that you do like a potassium citrate if you find that your potassium levels are running low. IP6, now IP6 we tend to use